All right, welcome everybody. Thanks for being here. I want to start the presentation with a short rant um, and something I'm pretty passionate about. And I want to say that home inspection is a professional consulting practice. It's not a trade, it's not an industry, it's something else altogether. It's a profession. You folks make important decisions with incomplete information using deductive reasoning and applying scientific principles every time you do a home inspection. You communicate at a high level verbally and in writing with your clients. And you know what? What we do, what you folks do, is special. It's not something most other professionals do. It's not something anybody else in the world does. I just want to make sure that you understand that what we do is difficult, challenging, and obviously rewarding. To help convince you of that, I'm going to give you my tongue-in-cheek definition of what a home inspection is. So it goes like this. So home inspection is a business with illogically high liability, slim profit margins, and limited economies of scale. It's an incredibly diverse, multidiscipline consulting service delivered under difficult in-field circumstances before a highly stressed, hostile audience with differing interests in an impossibly short time frame, requiring the production of an extraordinarily detailed technical report almost instantly without benefit of research facilities or resources. Sounds simple, right? I just can't think of any other professionals who do the same level of work that you do at the same speed, and let alone for the same very reasonable money. So just wanted to start with a hats off to you folks. Now, let's get on with what we're supposed to be talking about. Okay, $8,000 a year more for doing absolutely nothing. How's that possible? Well, let's have a look. And before I start, I'm going to say this whole discussion is predicated on times being normal. And I'm hoping we're going to get back to normal times real soon. So bear with the COVID thing. I'm not going to give you the COVID conversations. There have been so many of those floating around that I'm sure you're all sick of hearing about it. And you guys know what's going on as well as I do. All right, so here's what I'm thinking. So really all we have to sell is our time, and time is money. And $8,000 is a lot of money, and it's a lot of time. So I'm going to say to you that if we can save you at least 15 minutes of a report, and I think that's super conservative, by the way, and if you do 300 reports a year, you would save 75 hours. And that's almost 2 weeks. For a lot of us, it is 2 weeks every year. If you could capture 2 weeks more every year, you could spend it marketing and building your business. You could spend it learning some more skills, providing ancillary services, that sort of thing. You could spend it fishing, relaxing, do whatever you love to do, or you could spend it doing more inspections. If you had 2 extra weeks, that's 10 working days, and that would be 20 inspections you could do. And let's say your fees were $400. So that's $8,000 every year if we can just save you some time writing reports. So you might say to me, but Alan, I don't do 300 inspections a year, I do less. Well, then I'm going to say to you, if you're not doing 300 a year, my guess is you're spending longer writing reports than the people who are super busy. So I'm going to guess that over the course of this presentation, we're going to be able to save you 30 to 60 minutes. And on top of that, I think we can help make your reports better for your clients. So let's just see what we can do and move the needle on all this stuff. Before we do, Brian, I'm going to ask for your help in doing a little poll. And what I'd like to find out from folks is, for an average inspection, how long do you spend report writing? And that could be the time you spend data collection in the field, plus the time you spend writing the report after the inspection. This is an anonymous poll, so you can be honest. Tell me what you think, average time report writing. Brian, can you put that poll up?
Certainly, Alan. All right, let's see here. Everyone's pretty quick to respond. All right, so we have two pretty glaring sides of the equation. On one side, we have less than 11% at under an hour, and over 50% take longer than 2.5 hours.
Wow. So only 1 in 10 home inspectors is spending less than an hour writing a report, and a huge percentage of you are spending more than 2.5 hours. Okay, I think we can really help tonight. That is so encouraging. Let's see if we can't make a big difference in how you guys spend your working lives. Okay, let's get going. All right, so I'm going to start with my philosophy, because if you don't understand where I'm coming from, my message doesn't make as much sense. And my philosophy starts with, what do our clients want? What are they looking for from us? Well, I'm going to suggest what they want is help making a big decision. What they'd really love is for us to go at the end of the inspection, give your client a thumbs up, yeah, you should buy this house, or a thumbs down, no, don't buy this house. Well, we're not going to do that. And I think clients understand that we're not going to do that. In the absence of giving them a thumbs up or a thumbs down, we should be giving them clear, simple, relevant information that helps them make one of the biggest decisions of their life. Do they want fluff? Do they want filler? Do they want to pay for the inspection by the pound? I don't think so. Do they want to read a bunch of inspector cover their butt info? I don't think so. As a matter of fact, I don't just think so, I know so, because we surveyed 3,500 clients and asked them what they were looking for. And believe me, they are not looking 50-page narrative reports. What they are looking for is a big picture. So we have lots of debates in home inspection. Should I include a summary in my report or should I not? That's up to you. It's a business decision. But what I am going to tell you is your clients want a summary. And a summary at the end isn't really useful. It's got to be up front. And you're going to say, well, the client will read the report. I know they won't. That's okay. Your summary is going to say, please don't rely on the summary. You've got to read the whole report. You've done your job. But you've got to give the client what they're looking for. And to me, the report should be broken down into 3 sections. The summary comes first, the body of the report that tells them about the condition of the property and includes the description items, and then the maintenance tips, the helpful stuff that applies to any home, comes at the end. It's one of the clutters that I see. I review so many home inspection reports, and I find it so depressing that home inspectors mix in big important messages with general advice about cleaning the gutters and doing all this stuff that you should do in any home all the time. I'm going to suggest don't confuse your client by mixing in the helpful tips with the meat and potatoes of the issue. And what I'm going to do, we have created a document that goes in the appendix of our reports that's called Good Advice for Looking After Your Home. And I'm going to give you a copy of it, and I'm going to give it to you in Word so you can fix it and make it your own. It's a pretty extensive list, but you know what? You'll do it better. You'll do it differently. It'll have to fit your region, your work area, and so on. So we're going to include that as a handout in the email that's going to follow this presentation. So you're going to get a copy of that. So feel free to adjust it, use it however you want. But I really encourage you to take the nonsense out of your report that's talking about maintenance and put that at the end where it belongs. I'm also going to tell you, you've really got 3 different clients on every home inspection. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is when people go to buy a house, they want that big picture. They just need to know, should I buy the house or not? That's where your summary comes in. So when they're buying, they want that quick, short summary, ideally 1 page, significant points, go, don't go. When they move in, they go, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? How do I look after this beast? What do I do? And that's where the body of the report comes in. That's where you're telling them what needs to be done to the house, when it needs to be done, and so on. That is the critical part for people who have moved in. The third client you have is when either something goes wrong with the house and they need to get something fixed, and that's where the reference material, understanding how things work. What is a chimney flashing? What does it do? What is a heat exchanger on a furnace? They can get that information from the reference material. They can get the maintenance information to help look after the house. And then the other thing that they might be looking for is, I'm going to make changes to the house. I'm going to replace the roof. What about maybe going to a cedar roof? What about going to a high efficiency furnace? And there again, you can provide that additional information through the reference content. So your clients are different people at different stages and have different needs. And that's why we think of our reports being in the 3 different layers. So summary, body, and then reference material and maintenance tips are the third part. Make sense? Hope so. Okay, let's move on. I'm also going to tell you as part of my philosophy that a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so illustrations and photos to me are critical. And the best thing about pictures is you don't have to worry about bad wording, poor grammar, typos, or anything else. A picture is a picture. It's quick and easy to do, especially with Horizon, stands on its own, super communication tool. What I don't love so much in our reports is the descriptions and limitations. And I'm going to give you a little rant on descriptions here and say, first of all, you folks are not paid to be inventory clerks. Documenting the description of the house is a necessary evil, not what you're getting paid for. Your clients don't really care for the most part, with the odd exception, maybe if they have to answer a question on an insurance form. And when you ask why descriptions are in there, I'm going to tell you to blame the standards of practice of our associations. And the reason I'm going to say that is the standards of practice were built with a view to helping verify that new inspectors knew their stuff. And so there's a lot of stuff in the standards of practice that is in there so that you can prove you know what you're talking about to somebody who is a report reviewer or report verifier trying to decide whether you should be a full member. And so when you think about it, whether the electrical service comes in overhead or underground, does that matter to the client? How does it help them? And there's a whole bunch of stuff in descriptions like that. So my advice to you is keep your descriptions to an absolute minimum. If you say you're going to follow the standards, you need to do that. So by all means, follow the standards, but don't do any more than you absolutely have to. So keep it simple, get done with it. It's not the main part of the inspection. Similarly, the limitations. A couple of thoughts on limitations. Again, first of all, keep them short and sweet if you can. Secondly, don't reiterate all the limitations in your standards of practice in your report. Again, how does any of this help the client? Not at all. The limitations are for your protection in case you end up in court and you want to be able to say, here's what I didn't do, and I told the client I couldn't do that. So to me, the only limitations that belong in the report are the limitations for things that you would have normally done, but you couldn't do during that inspection. Was there snow on the roof if you live in a cold climate? Was the power turned off and so you couldn't test the electrical system? And I'm going to go a step further and say it's not enough to put those kinds of things in the limitation section and leave it at that. What I really want you to do, and what the courts have asked in a number of precedent-setting cases, is for the home inspector to go beyond saying, I couldn't do it, and tell the client what to do. So if you can't get into the crawl space because the access is nailed shut, you need to say, I couldn't get into the crawl space, but you need to gain access to the crawl space and have it thoroughly inspected. Now, you can say, somebody else should do the inspection. It's enough to say, hey, somebody needs to get in there and inspect the crawl space. You can offer to do it yourself. You might say, I can come back and inspect the crawl space, and our hourly rate is $125 an hour. We're happy to do it on that basis. You might say, I can come back and inspect the crawl space at no cost. You might use that as a business and marketing tool. I don't care how you do it or what you offer, but what I do care about is telling the client, if you couldn't get into the crawl space or the attic, or you couldn't check the electrical system, whatever it is, if you couldn't do it, tell them they need to get it inspected, okay? Now, let me move on to the last point on the slide, and this is critical. The descriptions and limitations are not of particular interest to your client. You have to believe me on that. And I call both of them the necessary evil. I don't want you to spend much time on your inspection fussing about these, and I don't want you to spend much time on your report writing fussing over these. What I'd love you to do is use SpeedWrite. We've got it set up out of the box not badly. You can customize it to set it up however you want. But for those of you not familiar with SpeedWrite, it is a tool that when you turn it on, it automatically flips through every item on your description and limitation and reminds you to fill it in. If it doesn't apply, you just skip right by it. But you can fill out stuff so quickly. You don't have to navigate. You don't have to move around. You don't have to go back and forth, up and down menus. It just presents the page to you automatically. You make the entry, it shows you the next entry. It's magically quick. If nothing else from this whole presentation you take away, please take away, if you're not using SpeedWrite, you really need to do that. Brian, let's find out, how many of our attendees are using SpeedWrite, what I consider to be a core essential tool in your Horizon toolkit? Can we do a quick poll on that?
Definitely. Let me just get that started here, Alan.
I'm really hoping this is a big number.
So surprisingly, over 50% do not use SpeedWrite, almost closer to 2/3.
Okay. Well, okay, the good news is this session has not been a waste of your time, because for those of you who do not use SpeedWrite, you absolutely need to look at that. The learning curve to use it is less than 5 minutes, I promise you. There's lots of good stuff on our Horizon help. If you haven't been to our support center lately, you might want to take a quick look. We can show you how to use SpeedWrite in a heartbeat, and we have some amazing people like Brian and Ariel if you need to reach out for additional help on that. But by all means, get that one up and running. Okay, let's move on. A little bit more philosophy. I'm having lots of discussions with inspectors these days about things like, well, I really want to deliver my report on site. And I'm going, yeah, you can do that if you like, but please don't feel pressured to do that. After 42 years and a few 100,000 inspections, we've done it every which way. And I can tell you right now, I think our clients are better off because we do the inspection, we go back and polish and finish the report and deliver it same day, but not on site. We have no complaints from the real estate community. We have no complaints from clients. It works out well, and it gives you a chance to write the best report you can. A report delivered on site is a report created under pressure. Don't put more pressure on yourself. Here's the other thing. I'm having a lot of people tell me that they are now telling their clients to stay away. And this is pre-COVID. This has nothing to do with COVID-19. They were telling their clients not to show up until the last few minutes of the inspection so that they could inspect the house freely, they could get through it faster, and then summarize for the client who shows up at the end. I don't think that's the ideal way to do an inspection. It might be more convenient for the inspector, but to me, our role is to serve our clients and help them make the most important decision of their life from a financial perspective. So what I like to do is think of a home inspection as a 2.5-hour course in home ownership. I want the client there. I want them to understand what I'm looking at. I want to have a conversation with them. I want to see the look in their eyes when I explain something to them. And if I see that they're puzzled, I'll say, I didn't explain that very well. Let me try that a different way so that you can have some real communication. And the other benefit of having them there for that whole time is people are generally blown away by what we do. People have a huge respect. You've established rapport, and by the end of the inspection, they have come to know you a little bit and respect you. And when it comes to complaints and things going wrong, I have a philosophy that I think is absolutely true. Friends don't sue friends. The more your client sees how hard you worked for them, what you did, how much you care about what you do, and how much you care about them, you are far less likely to have a significant problem down the road. I can tell you that after 42 years, a huge number of the complaints we get are complaints from clients who did not attend the inspection because they didn't get a chance to see us, see what we do for them, build the rapport, and have that relationship. Next point. I'm getting some people, and I was a little bit saucy in our last presentation about site info, and I got some great feedback from folks who've been around a long time who I tremendously respect. And they said, gosh, we like to put more in our reports. Alan, you're saying less is more. We think more is more. And I'm going to say, fair point, absolutely agree. As long as that more content helps your client and is useful to them. And I'm going to show you in a few minutes how more is not more if it's junk. And I'm going to separate the junk from the good stuff for you. And I want you to look carefully at your reports and see if you've got any junk in there. All right, let's get going here. So if you agree with any of my philosophy, and there's none of you who are going to agree with all of it, and it's kind of what makes home inspection fabulous is different ideas, different perspectives. I don't expect you to agree. I don't ask you to agree with everything I say. I'm happy to share it as long as I can make you think and you come to a sensible conclusion. That's all I really care about. So my goal here is to save you some time writing reports and save your client some time reading the reports and feel better about the report they got from that inspector who did a terrific job for them. Okay, so first things first, I need you to set up and use Horizon properly. I'd love you to use it like a scalpel, not a machete. And a machete is kind of how I use Word. I use it like an electronic typewriter because I don't take advantage of all the tools in Word, and I do the same thing with Excel. But with Horizon, since it makes up about 50% of your working life, you really need to set it up properly and use it efficiently. So first things first, I need you to hide the stuff you never use. That Show Hide button in the top right corner of your working screen is magic. Learning curve, less than 60 seconds. Get rid of all the stuff you never see. Understand that the Horizon database is trying to be all things to all inspectors across North America. You don't work across North America. If you're in the Northeast, you don't need evaporative coolers. If you're in California, you don't need steam heating. You probably don't need anything about hot water heating. So get rid of everything that doesn't apply to you. Our new customize feature allows you to set up stuff that is so customized. You can have your implications exactly what you want. If you call them purlins instead of beams, you can change the name of it. I don't care. You can call them girders, whatever you say in your client. If you call it a toilet, a water closet, doesn't matter. Get that the way you want it. Get the implications the way you want it. Some people say our implications are too scary, so fix them. Do it once and it's done forever. The other thing you can do is preset. Don't agonize on every inspection which things should go to your summary, because I promise you sometimes you're going to forget to click the box that sends something to the summary. Do it once going through your database. Every time I see an old furnace that needs to be replaced, that should be on my summary. And click the box once and customize, and you're done. Click it in your presets and your report items. You can not only set the summary, you can also determine the task and the time. So you can preset, you can even preset location if you want, And best of all, if you have a note that you always write about this item when you find it, you can write that note once and preset it to always appear with that item in your reports. So it is so quick and so easy. Lastly, I'm going to say you can use templates. And for those of you who don't use templates, the power of a template is this. You can set them up for a whole house, or you can set them up system by system. Let's use the whole house example. So if you live in an area where there's a subdivision that has 200 houses that were all built in the 90s, they're all built the same, they all have poured concrete foundations, conventional floor joists, they all have brick fronts and vinyl siding, and 100 amp service and copper supply piping and ABS plastic waste piping, whatever it is, you can put all of those entries in, set that up as a 1990s subdivision house, and then in one click, you can make 20, 30, 40 entries. So the power of templates is pretty significant. So that's another opportunity for you to set up stuff before you start, save yourself a bunch of time. The other one that's not on the list that I think is worth doing is that in your location, task, and time columns on your recommendations, you can customize those lists. You can move stuff around to put the most common ones at the top. You can, again, hide the ones you don't want, get rid of them, and you can add new ones. So repair, replace. I might put those at the top. I might have repair, I might have replace, and then repair or replace. And then when should you do things? I think Horizon gives you immediately. A really common one is to put in as soon as possible or as soon as practical or when necessary. There are all kinds of variations. Put the ones that you use all the time at the top of your list so they're really easy to find. The same thing with the location items. It's just so easy to set up once, run with it, and you're done. It'll save you spending an hour one time will save you 10 minutes or more every inspection thereafter. So it is a huge return on investment for your time. Okay. Here's another little tip to save you a bunch of time on inspections and do a much better inspection from a client relationship standpoint. Get your contract signed before the inspection. First of all, it'll reduce your liability because asking the client to sign on site opens a liability door for attorneys on the other side. Get that contract into your client's hands and get it signed before the inspection. Horizon makes that dead easy with our confirmation email, link to the contract, and so on. And by the way, we scan our schedule every day before the next day's inspections to see who has not accepted their contract. And we will get on the phone and say, hey, haven't got your contract acceptance yet. We need that to confirm the appointment. Please get that over to us. So it is a terrific thing to do. And by the way, about 96% of our inspections, we have the contract signed before the inspection. There's the odd exception, but not many. The thing I love about it, in addition to reducing your liability and saving you time, is, to me, when I meet a client on site, you're trying to establish a relationship, build rapport with them. If the first part of your conversation is, okay, here's the rules of the game, here's a semi-legal document I want you to sign, here's all the stuff I'm not going to do for you, I think that begins the relationship on a bad note. Why bother? Let's get it done before the fact. You can start with, hi, how are you doing? Congratulations on the house. Tell me about your plans for the house. Here's what we're going to focus on today. I want you to come through with me, and we're going to see if we can't get you really comfortable with how the house works and how to look after it. Whatever your script is, get right into that. Same thing at the end of the inspection. I hate at the end of the inspection, you've built up this relationship with the client, and then you kind of ruin it by saying, oh, can you dig into your pocket and pull out some money and pay me for my work? That asking to get paid and that awkwardness as well. Do you take cash? Oh, of course. Do you do credit card? Yes. Oh, do you do American Express? No. All that stuff, I don't want to be having that conversation. I don't want to ruin the glow of the inspection experience by trying to do a financial transaction at the end. Again, Horizon allows you to build that in. Our terrific payment processing partners, Guardian Financial, they make it so easy and so cheap for you to do that. Automated payment processing, done before the fact. And at Carson Dunlop, something like 93, 94% of the time, our inspections are prepaid. So before you go out the door, you've got the contract signed, you've got the money in the bank, good to go. And tied to both of those things, please flip the switch that turns on contract first and payment first. It's a little tool in Horizon that doesn't let your client download, look at, save their report until they have accepted the contract terms and paid you. That is magical. You don't have to chase people. They want to get their report. They're going to pay their bill. They're going to accept the contract terms. So simple stuff that will save you time and lead to a smoother experience. Okay. I already ranted about this a little bit, but please, 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 if you're not using SpeedWrite, please look at it. Please do it. Whether you're writing reports on Horizon Mobile or whether you're doing it on the web, doesn't matter. Use SpeedWrite. You can customize it. You can set it up to suit yourself. Out of the box is not bad, depending on what standards you use. You may want to add or subtract. It takes a heartbeat to change it. It's really quick, really easy. Secondly, we have a little tool called search. And I'm going to say, long live search, navigation is dead. Here's a little confession. I don't love to navigate through screens. I don't love to look for stuff in lists. I have been the main architect of Horizon, and I still can't remember where some stuff is. Where are exhaust fans? Are they in electrical? Are they interior? Are they in insulation, ventilation section? Where are fireplaces? Are they in heating or are they in interior? I'm going to tell you it doesn't matter. If you use search, Horizon does all the heavy lifting for you. And a couple of things about search. First of all, it is super powerful. It is Google-esque. So you don't have to put the words in the right order. You don't have to put the whole words in. So if you want to tell, let's say I'm looking for clogged gutters, you can type CLOGUT, clogged gutters, and Horizon will take you right there. The other thing is we have spent a fair bit of time putting in words that are synonyms for things in reports. So for example, if you find the word beam in the report, but you type in girder because you think about it as a girder, Horizon's going to take you to the beam section. If you think of header versus lintel, either word works. So we have built a whole bunch of redundancy into the back end of Horizon that you don't see that allows that search to be powerful and rewarding for you. So it is pretty satisfying. It is pretty quick. And again, if you use search, you are going to save a ton of time relative to, or save a ton of time rather than going through the scrolling back and forth, up and down, in and out, looking around for what you're trying to find. It's just so much better, so much faster, so much simpler. Please give it a shot. Okay, so now we're going to get to the hard parts. That was the easy part, setting up and using Horizon. There's lots of support, lots of help, easy to do. Please do it. Now I'm going to push you a little bit. So I'm going to ask you to get rid of some of your baggage. And you might love it too much to get rid of, and if so, I understand. But I want you to try and open your mind a little bit, relax for the next 20 minutes and say, you know what, I'm going to be receptive rather than defensive. So here we go. Okay. The key question in everything in your report, I want you to look at every sentence, every word in your report and say, how does this help my client? Is this good for my client or not? It will be an interesting exercise, I promise you. Okay, so here's some examples. And these examples, by the way, come from reports. I'm not making this stuff up. I'm also not putting in stuff that I've only seen once or twice. I'll forgive those. As I say, I review a lot of reports from all over North America, and here's the stuff that I see frequently that I think does not do a good job of answering the question, is this good for my client? This is a 2-story, 4-bedroom house. Thank you for sharing that with your client. I'm reasonably sure they had not noticed that before. They've made an investment of a few $100,000 hanging in the balance, and they didn't bother to see how many bedrooms it has or to see whether it was a 1 or a 2-story house. Are you kidding me? The house is roughly 10 years old. So what? What does that mean to your client? How does that help them? It might mean something to you in that the roof's probably 10 years old, and you might tell them that they're probably going to have to replace the roof in 5 years. If that's the case, then tell them that. Don't tell them the house is 10 years old. House is roughly 3,000 square feet. First of all, did you measure it? Secondly, you're probably going to be disagreeing with what's in the listing. You're probably going to irritate the real estate professionals involved, and you're sticking your neck out on something that doesn't matter. If you're wrong, you're going to be in trouble. If you're right, you're probably going to upset somebody. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really help your client. It's not what you're getting paid for. It's not the value you bring. It's not you being a professional consultant. The swimming pool is located in the backyard. Well, thank goodness, because they would have probably fallen in if you hadn't told them that. Seriously, this is what people are putting in reports. Okay, let's get technical. Flooring, 2x8 joists, 16 inches OC. Okay, first of all, you're all professional home inspectors. Is this floor okay or not? No way to tell, right? That's not enough information. Is that floor adequate? I don't know anything about the type of lumber. I don't know anything about the span. By the way, do you think every homeowner, including millennials, understands what you mean by 2x8 joists? They don't know what a joist is. They don't know what 2x8 means. And worse than that, when you say OC, you and I know it means on center, but a lot of your clients don't. And even if you say 16 inches on center and spell it out, do they know what that means? How is this useful to a client? And I get into huge discussions with inspectors about this. I'm going, that doesn't tell the client anything. And even if you go a step further and say 2x8 joists on 16-inch centers spanning 9'6", all the client wants to know is the floor strong enough or not. That's what you need to tell them. Don't give them a bunch of facts and then wiggle out of telling them whether that means anything to them or not. If you see a problem with the floor framing, write it up. If you don't, shut up about the floor framing. Don't say anything about it. This is noise. This is filler. This is fluff. This is useless. You get my point. Okay. Stairwell lighting controlled by 3-way switches. In the first place, you need to understand that electricians only call them 3-way switches to confound the rest of the world and justify charging $100 an hour. 3-way switches doesn't mean anything to your clients. Are you trying to tell them that the stairwell lighting is controlled so you can turn the lights on whether you're at the top or bottom of the stairs? Well, in the first place, every stairwell needs that. It's not a special feature. It's a requirement. If it's missing, you need to tell the client that they've got a safety issue in their house because you can't have the stairs lighted properly when you're trying to go up or down them. That's an issue. In the absence of that, don't tell them something about their stairwell lighting, especially something they can't possibly understand. Ground fault circuit interrupters protect exterior receptacles. What, from raccoons? What does this mean to a client? How many clients understand what a ground fault circuit interrupter is? And what kind of protection does it afford? Oh, you mean this will keep you from getting electrocuted? Well, that's good, but every exterior receptacle nowadays should have a GFI protection. So I'm going to say if it's there, shut up about it. If there's something wrong with the exterior receptacle, say, hey, this might give you a shock or cause a fire. We need to address this. You get the difference in the message? Overflow noted on a kitchen sink. Okay, you and I know that kitchen sinks are not supposed to have overflows. Clients have no idea. Is that good or is that bad? Same thing, furnace capacity. We all do this one. How big is the furnace? 80,000 BTU per hour. And most of you don't bother to say whether that's input or output. But how does that help the client? Is that big enough for the house? Well, most home inspectors put that number in, pretending that they're providing the client valuable information, but then they're not willing to take a stand on whether that's adequate heat for the house. What the client wants to know is this furnace going to keep me warm on the coldest day of the year? Telling them the BTU rating is useless. As I say, we all do it. It's partly the standards of practice fault because a lot of the standards say you have to describe the heating system. And some of the standards say by its distinguishing features. So gas-fired forced air, high-efficiency furnace rated at 80,000 BTU per hour. I do like giving them the age and then telling them the life expectancy. So if I've got a 2-year-old furnace and you tell them they last 20 years, that's great. If you got a 19-year-old furnace and you tell them they're going to last 20 years, that's a very different message for the client. But a lot of what we do is really filler, cover your butt stuff that does not help your client. Induced draft water heater, same thing. Client has no freaking idea what an induced draft water heater is. Is it good, bad, large, small, expensive, cheap? Is it going to give me enough hot water? That's what I'd really like to know. GFIs in bathroom and on exterior. Well, when you say GFCI and don't write out ground fault circuit interrupter, you're pretty much guaranteed that they don't have any clue what you're talking about. And the fact that they're in the bathroom and on the exterior, is that good or bad? What about the kitchen? Aren't they supposed to be in the kitchen too? What does that mean to the client? Okay, you're getting the drift here, and I'm being cruel? Absolutely. Service entrance overhead. I said earlier the standards require it, but it's nonsense. The electrical service either comes into the house safely or it doesn't, full stop. Thermostat is on an exterior wall. Great. You found the thermostat. What you're subtly trying to tell the client is that thermostats on an exterior wall are probably not going to respond accurately to the temperature in the house, and that's a problem. If there's a problem with the thermostat, just say the thermostat should be relocated to an interior wall where it will accurately reflect the temperature of the room or the temperature of the home. Utilities were on at the time of the inspection. Okay, I'm going to flip that one on its head. If the utilities were on at the time of the inspection, don't say anything. If the electricity was off, that's a limitation, right? The electricity was off and I could not test the electrical system in the house. Full stop, right? No, wrong. What did I say earlier? If there is a limitation that prevents you from doing what you usually do, you need to tell the client what to do. So you need to say, the electricity needs to be turned back on and the electrical system inspected. And then you can say that can be done by somebody else, an electrician, a utility, whomever, by yourself for free, by yourself for a fee. I don't really care. But you need to give them some direction, not just tell them that you couldn't do it. Site info, I spent an hour last month telling you how nonsensical I think this is. I ruffled a few feathers. So I'm an absolute advocate about not reporting the weather, the number of attendees, the utilities that were on, whether the house was occupied, when you started and finished your inspection, how old the house is, how big the house is, what kind of neighborhood it is, what the street is made with, what the driveway is. All that nonsense, get it out of your reports. Save yourself a bunch of time and stop wasting your client's time. Okay, what else have we got here? Furnace blower, direct drive or belt drive. What does that mean? Who cares? Is the furnace working? Is the furnace going to be reliable for me? Great. Air conditioning rating, same thing, 3 tons. Do you think a client understands what a ton of cooling is? Not a chance. And even if you told them it was 36,000 BTUs per hour, so what? What does that mean? How does that help them? Is it going to keep my house cool on the hottest day of the year? I don't know. We have some guidelines in our education material about tons per square foot and BTUs per square foot on heating. You can use those yardsticks if you like, and you'll probably need to apply some local multipliers to them. But the real value of a home inspection is highlighting the undersized furnace or the undersized or even oversized air conditioner. Okay? Those are what your client is looking for and counting on you for, and they're not getting it from most of us. The water heater BTU and rating size, we've touched on this one already. The size of it, again, if you tell them it's 40 gallons or 189 liters, whatever you tell them, that number doesn't mean anything to them. It doesn't help them. Duct material, is the ductwork galvanized, fiberglass, whatever, who cares? Doesn't matter. Air filter type, disposable, washable, electronic, what does that mean? What I like about doing an inspection with a client there is I can point out to them when we're looking at the furnace, here's your filter, here's how you change it, see this little arrow, make sure the arrow is pointed in the right direction, it goes this way. So you can do some hands-on stuff, but that's not what you're getting paid for. That's courtesy tips, okay? Putting it in the report is a waste of your time and your client's time. Okay, doorbell, seriously. Now I understand there is at least one state that in their standards of practice, you have to report on the doorbell. I don't want to live in that state. That is flat out ridiculous. Can you imagine your client having found the right home for themselves and their family, having negotiated with the seller through their real estate professional, the house is right, everything's going perfectly in the inspection, until you point out the doorbell doesn't work. The whole deal obviously has to fall apart and everybody has to walk away. Do you understand how ludicrous that is? What does that have to do with buying a home? A doorbell that's not working. It's just crazy what we tell people. The roof type, is it gable, shed, or flat? Nobody understands what a gambrel roof is. Don't put that in your report. It doesn't matter. People don't see it. If the roof is a butterfly design and all the roof slopes converge on a low spot in the center, you might want to be looking pretty closely for evidence of leakage below that spot. So it might mean something to you as a home inspector about vulnerable conditions and what to look for. But sharing this bland, useless, confusing information with clients is not doing them any favors. Flashing, whether it's aluminum, copper, rubber, all I want to know is keeping the water out. Remember, clients don't understand what flashing is. They think of the guy in a raincoat when they hear flashing. That's not valuable to your client. Might be interesting to you. It might help you bulk up a report, but not in any kind of valuable or meaningful way. Okay, you know what? I should stop. I think I've beaten this to death. But here's my ask of you, a tiny bit of homework. Go and look at your last 3 reports, or if you don't have the patience, just look at your last report. Go through it from the mind of a client who does not know anything about houses. Not hard to envision when we think about millennials. They have no interest. I've got 5 kids. None of them interested in being in home inspection. None of them interested in home maintenance and repair. They want somebody to do it for them. They've got other interests. They're busy doing other stuff. Doesn't mean they're stupid. Doesn't mean they're less important. It just means they have different priorities. So I want you to go through your reports like a millennial and say, how does this help me make the most important financial decision of my life? And see if you can scratch anything. Okay. Now, no, you're right. I can't do it. I said I'd stop now, but I'm going to give you one more thing because this is so prevalent. I'm going to ask you to stop being helpful. I'm going to ask you to stop writing long, redundant notes. And I'm going to tell you that the more we say, the more opportunity we have to make mistakes, and the more opportunity we have to say it badly. And I don't mean to say none of you are trained, technical, professional writers, but I'm going to say most of you are not trained as technical, professional writers. And sad to say, it shows. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. Okay, here's a great photo. Clearly we're up in the attic. We're looking down at the ceiling joists. What do you see? Wait a minute, I don't see any insulation. Okay, where I live, that's a problem. I think in most of North America, that's a problem. What else do I see? I see some knob and tube wiring running along across the top of the ceiling joists. Okay, maybe we should talk about that. So here's what the report says. There is no insulation in the attic. The plaster and lath ceiling is visible. Typical insulation levels would be R40. I recommend a 6 mil polyethylene vapor barrier and fiberglass insulation valued at R40. This should be done immediately throughout the attic. Knob and tube wiring was also noted in the attic. Implications: increased heating and cooling cost. Clearly they're talking about the insulation here. Location: attic, very helpful. Task: replace the knob and tube wiring with modern cable. Also, provide vapor barrier and insulation. Time: immediate. Okay, so what's wrong with this? First of all, describing the plaster and lath ceiling doesn't have anything to do with anything. Secondly, professional reports do not have any sentences that start with "I recommend" or "we recommend" or "we suggest." Just tell them what to do. Get right to the task. Don't personalize it. It's a report. Don't write a specification. Never mind the 6 mil polyethylene vapor barrier. And would it be a problem if they chose not to use fiberglass insulation but instead put in mineral wool? Why would you specify that? At least they didn't go so far as to say fiberglass bad or blown in. But don't be writing specifications. Don't tell people how to fix their problems. Okay. The other big thing in this little item is don't tell them in the notes what you're already going to tell them in the bullet points below. We built Horizon with those bullet points to help you be consistent. So if you know the location is going to be the attic, and I might argue you don't even need to put this one in because the title at the top says attic roof. So I would leave that out. Don't tell them when stuff ought to be done in the notes if you're going to put it in the time below. If you're going to insist on wasting your time and running the risk of making typos and having horrible grammar, putting it in the notes, at least do your client the favor of not then filling it out in location, task, and time. Totally redundant. And by the way, it's so much easier for your client to read a heading and a bullet point than a paragraph. It's better communication. It's simpler for your client. So lastly, please don't talk about two different defects in the same item. If you think the knob and tube wiring needs to be replaced, that should be in your electrical section, not in the insulation discussion. Make sense? Okay. So if I were to take that report, I would scratch most of it. So you can see the red line going through there. I would have said about a quarter of what is in there. Okay? For two reasons. Saves you time. No, three reasons. Saves you time. You're less likely to screw it up. And it's clearer communication for your client if you get rid of all the extra stuff. Okay? That's what I would do. You guys may differ. Okay. So some of you at some point are going to say, so why is all this crap in Horizon if you don't like it? Well, first answer is because we're morons. Second answer is because we do it because everyone else is doing it. And the third answer is because our clients have asked for it. So at the end of the day, Horizon is a product that is trying to be all things to all people. We're trying to run a business and we're trying to make it sensible for people. And my father used to tell me, the customer is always right. So there's a bunch of stuff in Horizon that has been added because Horizon users wanted it. And they stomped their foot and said, if you don't put this in, I'm not going to use Horizon. So there's a ton of stuff in there. But we also made it so that you can hide all the junk you don't need and don't use. And that's the part that people are not taking advantage of. And people say, oh my gosh, there's so Horizon's so confusing. There's so much. So declutter it, clean up your house, do a little bit of housekeeping in the spring. And now is a great time to be doing housekeeping because most of us have time. Get it cleaned up, and then you don't have to fuss with it. It's just so simple to do. And again, if you need help, our support center is terrific. Our support guys are terrific. We care. We want you to write the best reports you can in the least amount of time you can. Let us help you do that. Okay, let me summarize. I need you to set up Horizon and use the power of the tool. It is simple and elegant if you get it set up right. Secondly, cut out the crap and save yourself some time. And while you're doing that, make your clients happier and make yourself some more money. Just do it. It is very simple. This is not rocket science. And if you are spending 2.5 hours plus writing reports, I want you to target getting down to an hour. That would change your life dramatically. Okay, Brian, I suspect we have a few questions waiting to be asked, and if I can ask you to assemble those, I'll give you a minute to do that. And I just want to touch on one other thing before we get to questions. That is, I wanted to mention that we have our next session planned for about a month down the road, Wednesday, June 17th, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Time. The tentative topic is how we got over 5,000 great reviews. I'm going to give you another little insight and confession here, and that is at Carson Dunlop, we have lots of discussions over what things we should talk about in these sessions. So this is the tentative topic. Who knows where we'll have landed by June 17th, but our focus is to try and make it useful and relevant for you folks. So it might be this topic, it might be a different one. Stay tuned, and we'll let you know. Okay, Brian, dare I ask, do we have any questions, or has everybody gone home, discussed it?
No, we certainly do, Alan. We certainly do here. Where to begin? Question. So why are all these options in the description and limitations available if you say they're useless?
Well, I say they're useless, but I also said that they're a necessary evil. So the descriptions and limitations, the descriptions you have to put in to meet the standards of practice of the association or the state regulation or the provincial regulation that you work under. So I think they are useless for the client, but you need to put them in to be in compliance. If you say you're going to follow the standards, you need to do that. So people want to be a member of an association, or they want to follow their state licensing requirements for survival, credibility reasons, and so on. I don't love them. I don't think your clients love them either. In fact, I know they don't, but you've got to put them in. So that's why they're there. Until we can change that world, and God love you, I've tried and haven't won that battle yet. But until we can change that world, we need to put them in. The secret is less is more. And let me give you one quick example. If you describe a roof, and these are examples that come from problems that I'm aware of that home inspectors have gotten into. If you say that the roofing is cedar, I would prefer you say wood. The reason I say that is I'm aware of a very significant problem a home inspector had because he described the roof as cedar and it turned out to be pressure treated pine, not the same as cedar. The same thing is if you're going to describe a roof as slate, I've seen two different significant problems. In one case, the slate was actually recycled rubber tires. In the other case, slate was actually fiber cement shingles. So be careful giving more than you need to give. Keep it short, keep it simple. If you're going to talk about a metal roof, describe it as metal. Don't describe it as steel, aluminum, galvalume, tin, alloy, tern. There are lots of different things it might be. I want you to keep those descriptions as simple and generic as you can to avoid wasting time, making tough decisions on things that don't really matter, and perhaps being wrong and getting into trouble for something you shouldn't have said in the first place. Sorry, long answer to short question there, Brian.
No, I think everyone appreciates the detailed answer here. And Fred, hope you're doing well. Would you advise a student to start their own inspection business that has not learned to inspect on-site with an experienced inspector that was only trained by virtual video training?
Wow, what a question. Um, would you go to a doctor who had only been to med school and had never done any internship or residency? Obviously, experience counts. Book learning is worth something. And I'm sorry, I'm going to go on another tiny little rant here. For those of you familiar with our education program, it's a 10-course post-secondary level program that takes several hundred hours to complete. I think that's what it takes to build a foundation in the home inspection profession. Those of you who think you can do it in 2 weeks or 1 week or a short video course, you must be way smarter than me. God love you if you've done that. I rather suspect you've done a fair bit of subsequent learning, either continuing education, learning in the field on your own, perhaps at your customer's expense and experience. I don't know. But the short answer is, of course, you cannot be a successful home inspector after a short video course or a short course of any type. And even with a long course, there is no substitute for experience. I wish the home inspection profession had a better developed internship or apprenticeship program. It's not where it needs to be, for sure.
Thank you for the question, Fred, and thank you for the answer there, Alan. Brendan has a question about, do you recommend describing all the appliances and taking photos of them? So this would be more the description side of things.
In a word, no. In a slightly longer answer, first of all, I like a little tool called Recall Check that Inspector Services Group has that allows you to identify possible recalls on appliances. So in that sense, taking the photo of a data plate of an appliance is useful, and Horizon has a very elegant, low effort way of making that work and getting the data over to Recall Check, and you don't have to make any entries, you just take the photo and you're done. But generally speaking, I was saddened when the ASHI standards added appliances, because I come back to the doorbell analogy. Is somebody going to walk away from buying a home because the microwave doesn't work? I just don't get it. Appliances are, what's the life cycle of an appliance these days? 10 years? Appliances are disposable. They come and they go. They may not even stay with the home. The appliance that you inspect might not even be the one in the house by the time the house closes, but that's a whole different discussion. I don't fuss about appliances. I don't like fussing about them. I don't think they belong in the description particularly. I don't think we should even be inspecting them for the most part, to be honest with you. But I understand I'm on very thin ice with that comment. I'm happy to stand out there on the thin ice, but I understand most people are inspecting appliances now. I don't agree with it.
Thank you. Hisham has a question here, and due to situations, the current climate, what about including more information or additional photos and things of that nature, because clients won't necessarily be with you at present, right? So making a bit more robust report, having more of a description, more photographs due to limitations currently abroad.
That's a great question, a very interesting question. I'm going to say there's powerful logic in the question, but I'm also going to take the other side of the issue and say, sadly, I don't think clients read, understand, and retain the information in the inspection report. So one of the amazing things about home inspectors in general and about our young profession is that I think collectively we have a tremendous sense of wanting to serve our clients, to be helpful. And that question is a great example. It's trying to do the right thing for your client, which I absolutely admire and respect. The sad part is I don't think clients want it, need it, appreciate it, or understand it. It's one of the things. Here's a perfect example, and we do this at Carson Dunlop. We take a photo of where to shut off the water in the house. Where's the main water shut-off valve? And we put it in the report. So people know where to turn off their water. Well, that's great. Let me ask you this. The people have now moved into the house. They've been in it for a year, and all of a sudden they have a flood. So instead of going down to the basement or out to the front of the house and looking for the water shutoff valve, they say, oh, I had a home inspection done a year ago. I wonder if there's anything in there about that. I think there might be. Let me go and see if I can find the report. Oh, here's the report. Let me see if I can dig it out. Let me see if there's anything about where to shut off the water. Oh yeah, it's on page 14 right here, jumping off the page at me. You get the point. That's not going to happen. So this valuable information that we're providing, I really don't think is durable or transferable. I do think a discussion after the inspection, if the client can't be there, is super powerful. I think the maintenance stuff and pointing out the maintenance recommendation and where they are in the report is super helpful, and encouraging your client to go ahead and do that. And by the way, using tools in Horizon like Horizon Marketer and understanding that the client is going to forget almost everything about the inspection report by the time they move into the house 2 months later. So what about taking those maintenance tips and having Horizon Marketer automatically send those to your clients 2 or 3 months after the inspection as a reminder of what they should be doing? And when you get to see our list, we have 2 lists on our tips. One is one-time setup things that you should do when you move into the house, like changing the locks, for example, and then others that are seasonal and ongoing. So we're trying to help our client look after their investment. So that might be a different approach to trying to accomplish what you're trying to do. And again, I do appreciate and respect the question. It is a good one.
All right, next question here is from William. How do you handle cosmetic issues? Most of my clients are really weird about this, so when they bring it up, I put it in the report. Clients assume that the inspector did not do a complete inspection as encouraged by realtors and contractors. How do you handle it?
Well, I think one of the best ways to handle it is set the scope up front and to explain at the beginning of the inspection what your focus is and is not. Ron Passero, the founder of ASHI, is a good friend of mine, and Ron's opening script at the beginning of every inspection goes something like this. Folks, we're on a big game hunt today. We're looking to shoot elephant. So we're going to look for the big problems in your house. Along the way, we're going to come across some varmints, and we're happy to include those for you, but that's not our focus. Remember, it's a big game hunt. So when we see little defects, we're happy to include them, record them, but we're not looking for those because that's not what's important. And so he tries to frame what we're trying to do here is identify things that will change your mind about buying the house, not the little stuff. The other thing I say about cosmetics is it's personal, it's subjective. If I'm going to tell you the color of the backsplash in the kitchen is ugly, that's personal. If I tell you this carpet is worn out to a point where I don't think I would live with it, that's personal. Now, if the carpet is frayed and on the steps it's a trip hazard, I'm going to point that out because that is functional. But when it comes to cosmetics, your client is really the expert. So I'm going to say, and by the way, I think the real estate community by and large gets that. And so I would say, I'm here to provide one piece of the puzzle for you. And that piece of the puzzle is, what's the physical condition of the home? Is it performing its intended function? Is it going to keep you warm, safe, and dry? Those are the kinds of comments that I like to share with my client to help them understand our focus. And the cosmetic stuff, they're the expert. We'll leave that to them.
Thank you, Alan. Henry has a question about, is a contract without signature acceptable in quarter by E&O insurance? We're talking about getting in the digital contract there.
Absolutely. Great question. We agonized over this one for quite a while, but we have found in speaking to our attorneys, in speaking to our E&O insurance companies, they are completely comfortable with digital signatures. As a matter of fact, we don't even use a digital signature. Ours is just a checkbox. So the person writes in their name, clicks the I agree box, and move on. And I'm told in today's world that is acceptable. So here's my caveat. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not sure that that's true in every jurisdiction across North America. So what I would ask you to do is to bounce your contract, and I'm going to expand the answer by saying not just on the signature side, share your whole contract with an attorney who is likely to be defending you if you run into a problem. So that might be a lawyer who works with your E&O insurance company. It might be your E&O insurance company itself, but check with somebody who is going to be on your side in a fight and make sure they understand and agree with your contract, including how it gets signed, but also including the wording, the exclusions. If you put in a limitation of liability, for example, that is, we're limiting our liability to the fee, and that's not permitted in your state, you need to know that, and you need to change your contract. So I would get some advice. It's another one of those one-time things that you should do. Get it taken care of, get some professional advice from people who will have a vested interest in relying on that contract to help defend you if you ever do have a problem, and then get that done and move on. But I'm going to tell you, I'm about 90% sure the digital thing is fine in almost every, I'm not going to say every jurisdiction, but I'm going to say all the ones that I know of, it is acceptable.
Thank you, Alan.
Don has a question about, should you put all your recommendations in the summary?
In a word, no. The summary is to put stuff that is a significant issue that may change somebody's mind about buying the home. So to put all the minutia stuff in, the sticking doors and windows, the cracked panes of glass, the reverse polarity on one receptacle, none of that belongs in a summary. If you're going to do that, forget the summary and just give the people all your recommendations. The summary to me is for the big stuff. And sometimes people ask me, well, what if I don't have any big stuff? Well, we still put in a summary, and what we say is, this summary is where items that are significant issues are reported. Happy to say that we found none in this home. So you're giving them some good news saying there are no big issues. Quite happy to do that. So that's how I would handle it. And yeah, I do see a lot of people doing it. It's an absolute fair question because I see a lot of inspection reports where virtually every recommendation is in the summary. To me, you're just making people read the same thing twice then. And I don't think that's probably in your client's best interest.
Fantastic there. Daryl has a question about, do you report on if a system is working as designed or only if there's a defect?
Wow, good questions tonight. Here's what I'm going to tell you. You don't know whether the system is working as designed. You should never say that. A home inspection report should identify deficiencies, defects, issues noticed. It should not say that everything is fine. I hate the words satisfactory, acceptable, performing as designed. Excuse me. The reason for that is when you test the furnace and it's 50 degrees Fahrenheit outside or 10 degrees Celsius, is that furnace working as designed? Is it going to keep the family warm on the coldest day of the year? I don't know. Is the air conditioner going to keep the house cool on the hottest day of the year? Unless I'm doing the inspection on the hottest day of the year, I don't know. I find that roofs hardly ever leak when it's sunny outside. Do I know whether that roof is going to perform as designed in a heavy rain, with a wind of 35 miles an hour from the northwest? I don't know that. So there are so many things that you can't tell. I just want you to say, I prefer, if there are no defects, I prefer you to say nothing about it. If for the whole system, for example, if you inspect the air conditioning, you don't find a thing, I would say, we have no recommendations to offer as a result of our report, or you can say no issues were noted during the inspection, something like that, just to let them know you did in fact inspect the air conditioner. So don't gloss over the whole section. But generally speaking, if the evaporator coil seems okay, if the condenser seems okay, the refrigerant lines seem okay, don't list all of those as okay or performing as designed. Just identify the issues and the problems that you found. Keep it simple. Think of it as an exception-based report. So you are writing about the things that are abnormal or not working as intended that were observed during the inspection. Long answer again, Brian. Sorry about that.
No, I think the more detail, the better for everyone. Rico here has a question. Rico, hope everything's going well for you. Would you recommend that when you have a limitation like you can't inspect the attic, would you then document in the report what wasn't all inspected? So in this case, like the framing, perhaps plumbing, insulation, and or electrical. How would you take and approach that?
So if I can't see something that should be inspected, and I think we might have touched on this a little bit, if I can't see or can't inspect something that I would normally include, I would absolutely report that and I would include it. And to your point, Rico, I would be fairly specific about it, which items I could not inspect. But as I mentioned earlier, I don't think that's enough. Then I want you to go on and say, these items should be made accessible for inspection and should be inspected as soon as practical. And then you can go on to say whether you're prepared to do the inspection and at what fee. So I think that describing the limitations specifically for sure, and then providing the next step.
Great. Hope you like the answer there, Rico. And Jim here has a question about, well, millennials in general don't want to be handymen and perform home maintenance. They typically want to hire people. Should you include a list of local contractors in your reports appendix?
I'm going to say yes and no. I'm going to start with the no because I don't want you to be accused of having a conflict of interest. So the handyman one is somewhat innocuous, but if it gets into things like roof repairs, if you say the roof needs either repair or replacement, and Dominion Roofing is a great company that we know well, I think that puts you in the position of a perceived conflict of interest. Did the home inspector call out the roof as defective to get a kickback from the roofing company? So that's one thing. The other yes part of the answer is the world has changed so much, and there are so many services around like Home Advisor, Angie's List, and so on, that are services that aggregate these contractors and these services. And I won't, there are lots of them and there are lots of variations on the business models. But I think you can more safely tell people about those kinds of services. You don't need to tell them about one. You can say there are several. In some cases, there are professional associations. There are masonry associations, roofing associations, HVAC associations, and sometimes you can direct people to an authoritative body like that, especially if they're specialist things, that they can provide a good local contractor for you. So I'd rather you stay away from pointing people to a specific service provider and instead give them some helpful advice by all means. Again, it comes back to the point I made a few minutes ago. I love the fact that home inspectors are trying to look after their clients and trying to be helpful and trying to do the right thing. I just want you to do it in a way that doesn't get you into hot water. So love the question, love the concept. I would just be broad a little bit with my direction that I'm giving people, if that makes sense.
Great. Alan, this is fantastic. Now, folks, in the interest of time, we're going to address a couple more questions and then we'll wrap things up. But I do appreciate all the activity and engagement that people have given us and the questions. Daryl has a question, and this one's quite unique. So, should I expand on my recommendations more specifically on what to do if my client is more hands-on and specifically asks for it? So, self-professed handyman.
Absolutely. I think that's a slippery slope to go down. First of all, there's more than one way to skin a cat. And so whatever you suggest to them, your client's going to go online and watch a video that tells them to do it a different way. And now you're either looking like you're wrong, the client's confused, or he's going to call you and ask for clarification. I don't think it's part of what we do. I don't think it's the scope of what our profession includes. And so I would say, you know what, there are so many great resources from specialists out there. And I sometimes play the generalist card. And I say, you know what, as a home inspector, we're a lot like the family physician or family doctor. We have to have broad knowledge across many systems. So when you're looking for specific advice on specifications or how to do things, you want to go to the specialist. It's just like the family doctor uses a stethoscope, here's an anomaly in your heartbeat. He's going to send you to the heart specialist. He's not going to try and fix it himself. And so that's the kind of thinking that I would use to that answer. I don't care if you use that language or not, but I would try and stay away from getting specific on that. The other way that can come back and bite you is if you put that in for one or two items in the report, you've gone well beyond the scope. If that client later on has a problem with the home unrelated to the things you gave them the additional details on, and they come back to you, you can find that his attorney will use that against you and say, well, Mr. Inspector, in this section of the report, you went into great detail to explain this. Why did you gloss over this much more serious problem? And it makes you look inconsistent, and it's a tough spot to wiggle out of. So as tempting as it is, again, to be super helpful and do the right thing for your client, I think you need to pull back on that one. I'm sounding like a very cautious individual, aren't I, as I get older?
No, hey, better safe than sorry, and there's good reason for it, you know. I'm going to say this should be the last question for this evening, folks, and I think this will be a good one to cap off on. Andrew has a question. So are realtors in agreement with the suggestions and recommendations you're making tonight? And what do you find is the thing that you're most likely to get resistance on from agents from this kind of approach to reporting?
We've been at this a long time, and I'm going to tell you that real estate agents, for the most part, really appreciate it. The ones who take the time to look at the reports, the ones who attend the inspections and listen to us, they are more closely aligned to your client than they are to you, which is to say they don't understand, appreciate the long rambling narratives, the highly technical discussions, the muddled reports that include maintenance tips with serious defects all in the same paragraph. They too want clarity. They want their clients to be able to take the home inspection report, understand in a very small sector. They understand their clients not at their best intellectually or emotionally when they're buying a house. The simpler and more elegant the communication, the better it is for everyone. We have I can't remember an agent coming and saying, we wish you'd put more stuff in your reports. And I've had a lot of agents say to me, your reports are the easiest to understand of any that I've seen in the market. And I think that's the target. Clear communication. It doesn't have anything to do with, by the way, who's your loyalty to? The client, the agent, the seller, somebody else? I'll tell you who I think your loyalty is to. You owe your loyalty to the house. Your responsibility is to describe the condition of that house as accurately as you can in your report. That's what you're obligated to do. And that's what you're going to be measured against in the future if there's any question about your work. So it can't be colored by the interests of your clients or the agent or anybody else if you're going to be in this for the long term. You've got to report the condition of the house as you see it, as you understand it. And that's maybe a very good note to finish up on for tonight, Brian.
Excellent answer, Alan. Everyone, thank you so much for your participation. The questions have been fantastic. Any questions we weren't able to get to, we'll be sure to send a follow-up email and address them. And again, if anyone needs any help or assistance, we're always here. You can reach out to us, and we hope to see you in our next community webinar, Wednesday, June 17th. Alan, any final words?
Well, just thank you, Brian, for organizing and orchestrating this. You make my life so easy. Thanks to everyone for being here. I love the questions. As you can tell, I'm passionate and intrigued by all this. So happy to get the questions. Look forward to feedback. As Brian said, I'm sure there's some other questions. Brian and I will make sure you get an answer to those questions. And hope to see you next month. Thanks for watching.
Have a good day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Good night.